Okay, so this is something you'll continue to see until you all have a pretty good handle on this. Just to remind you, okay, this is not really that difficult of a thing if you follow the logic of the questions that you're asking. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish an interaction with the environment, right? A successful interaction with the environment involves three things. I need to extract energy and biomaterials. If you don't put both of these in, I'll take a half a point off, because not all biomaterials are energy, okay? We need to maintain a stable internal environment, and we need to persist in the environment and as an individual and as a species. And all three of these things are entirely comprehensive. Anything that we need to accomplish in order to be successful in our interaction with the environment are contained within these three goals, okay? And that's why I created this idea, because I wanted something that was comprehensive, because I was tired of one textbook telling me this is a list of things that you should memorize, and another textbook said this is a list of things that you should memorize about life, and another one said this is a list of things that you should memorize about life. I wanted to create something that was entirely comprehensive and something that I didn't have to memorize, because I can ask myself the questions if I know what this goal is, it makes sense to me what accomplishes that goal. I only have two things. I digest and I metabolize, right? If you're on your phone right now, please put it away. Okay, I digest and I metabolize. Those are the two things that get energy and biomaterials into my cells. And the things that accomplish that are the digestive system, and all cells accomplish metabolism, but in particular the respiratory system gives me oxygen and gets rid of carbon dioxide, which is all part of metabolism. And the way that I can kind of think about this is that there are two parts of this. I break this stuff down to the point where my cells can actually use it, right? That's the digestion part. And then my cells actually use it. That's the metabolism part. Those are the two functions that accomplish this, okay? And I have 5 things that help me maintain a stable internal environment. And I don't need to memorize these. It just makes sense. I maintain my boundaries, right? That's what I've got to do before I do anything. I've got to have a boundary. And I've got to populate that boundary with things that can be responsive, okay? I have this responsiveness thing. And movement is actually part of responsiveness, but it's big enough in its own right that we give it a separate category. Then I have to get my biomaterials throughout my body, and then I have to get rid of stuff, okay? And to maintain boundaries, I use the integumentary system. To respond, these are the things that I respond with, right? My nervous system's the main one, but my endocrine system, I respond, my fight or flight, right? That's my endocrine system. And then my immune system, I don't need to memorize that, it just makes sense. These are the 3 things that respond for me. Musculoskeletal is easy. How do I distribute? My cardiovascular. Well, if I know my cardiovascular system, I know what's inside my cardiovascular system, right? I should at least get cardiovascular and blood, but I might have to memorize the lymphatic system because we don't talk much about that, okay? What do I get rid of? I get rid of carbon dioxide, I get rid of solid waste, I get rid of nitrogen wastes, okay? How do I do that? Solids, digestive, carbon dioxide, respiratory, nitrogen, urinary system. Okay? Those are all of the things that I need to do to make my stable internal environment, to create that stable internal environment. There's nothing else that I need to do, and it's all contained in this. How do I persist? Okay? I grow and develop, right? I go from a single cell to 2 cells to 4 cells to 8 cells to 16 cells. I'm persisting, right? I'm persisting as an individual to 32 cells, to 64 cells, to a ball of cells, to a little fetus or a little embryo, and then to a fetus. And I grow and develop as that occurs, and I use all systems. And how do I persist as a species? I reproduce, and that's accomplished by my reproductive system, okay? It really, literally just takes a little bit of practice for you to remember all of this. And if you do, just by the fact that you know all this, you know a significant amount of physiology. And you know a significant amount of anatomy. From this point, we break all of this down, and we break all of this down to get more and more detail. Now, the 1.1 through 1.5 was all about body chemistry, right? How do I use my knowledge of chemistry to understand physiology? I'll need you to be able, and MC means multiple choice, I'll need you to be able to recognize the definition of an element, a compound, and a mixture. That was in section 1.1. And these notes are, you have, did I give you these back? I think I gave you most of these back. They're all on Canvas. But all of this is here on the sheet as well. So definition of an element, definition of a compound, definition of a mixture, be able to recognize those. Those will be multiple choice questions. An element is a pure substance, right? Pure substance, atom of one type, right? Atom of one type. Pure substance, atom of one type. Compound is a pure substance, atoms of more than one type. Okay. Definition of a mixture. No, atoms of more than one type, and also for a compound, chemically combined in consistent ratios. Okay, mixture combination of two or more substances not chemically combined. Okay, that's going to be the distinction. Mixture, two or more substances not chemically combined or in consistent ratios. Compound, two substances that are chemically combined and in consistent ratios. Not inconsistent, but inconsistent. Let's separate those a little bit more because it looks like inconsistent. Inconsistent ratios. Okay. As far as mixtures go, we have a lot of mixtures in our body that we need to be able to think about. And we have three different types of mixtures. We had solutions, and we had colloids, and we had suspensions. And it depended on the size of the particles. Okay? If my particles were the size of atoms or molecules, these were going to be solutions, right? I mix water with sodium chloride and I get a solution. If I can see particles through the microscope, then we're going to call that a colloid. If I can visibly see particles with the unaided eye, we're going to call that a suspension. Okay, and so a solution might be a salt solution. That would be your example if you thought about it. Our colloid would be blood. I need a microscope to see the blood cells. Gastric contents. What's gastric mean?
Gas.
Stomach. So stomach contents, gastric contents. Okay, I can see the particles with my unaided eye, right? So that would be an example of that. Except I can't spell today. Gastric contents. Okay, you won't need to know these examples, but those would be good examples. Okay. Any questions about page 1? All you're going to have to do is match those. I'll mix the list up, and you'll have to draw arrows to the correct ones. Yeah. Okay, why is my computer acting weird? Come on. Okay, multiple choice. As far as atoms go, know that the nucleus contains protons and neutrons. Okay, I'll give you 4 choices. One will be protons, neutrons, one will be protons, electrons, one will be neutrons, electrons, and one will be protons, electrons, and neutrons. And you will select protons and neutrons, right? Okay, do you have your study guide with you?
I don't think I got one.
Were you here last time?
No.
Okay, then you should probably get one. Up here. Okay. Know that the space surrounding the nucleus contains electrons. Okay. That's also going to be a multiple choice question. Know that the electron has a negative charge, the proton has a positive charge, the neutron has no charge. Multiple choice question. Know that the proton and neutron each have a mass of 1 atomic mass unit. And you know what, let's scratch that question in. I don't really want to put that question in there. Okay. Know the space around the nucleus in which a pair of electrons can exist is an orbital. Right, when we talked about the atom, remember we had a first energy shell and there's 1 orbital. And it only contains 2 electrons. We have a second energy shell that contains 4 electrons. And we have a third energy shell that contains, or I'm sorry, 4 orbitals, not 4 electrons. 4 orbitals. Right, so an orbital, because I draw my diagrams this way with 2 electrons, the space that we call that is an orbital, and it has 2 electrons. About half of you will tell me that an orbital can have 8 electrons in it. Yeah?
Can I get the factor for today?
Except that we're not going to be able to get to it probably, but let's see. Where did I put those? know what, can you remind me after class? Okay, thanks. So a bunch of you will tell me that an orbital can hold 8 electrons. An energy level can hold 80 electrons, but an orbital can only hold 2 electrons. Know that the atomic number of an element is the number of protons. Know that the sum of the number of protons and neutrons is the mass number. And we're going to scratch out isotopes. So scratch that out and scratch that out. Okay? Okay, so, and these will all be multiple choice questions. That's from section 1.1. Chemical bonds. Understand that physical and chemical properties and functions of compounds are greater and more diverse than the atoms from which they came. I have hydrogen and oxygen that combine to give me water, but hydrogen and oxygen, neither of those have the properties or capabilities of water molecules, right? Water molecules have much greater properties and more diverse properties than either hydrogen or oxygen by themselves. So in some way, shape, or form, I'll have a multiple choice question that addresses that issue. Understand that properties and functions of compounds come from the way electrons interact. How do they bond together? Okay, know how many electrons can be in an orbital. We already said that that was 2. Know how many orbitals are in the first, second, and third energy level. I've got 1 orbital, 4 orbitals, and 4 orbitals, or 2, 8, and 8 electrons. Okay? If you answer this correctly, you should also be able to answer the question about how many electrons are in an orbital correctly.
Question.
Yeah.
The difference between an orbital and an energy level.
This is an energy level. This is an orbital in that energy level. So orbitals are spaces within energy levels that hold electrons. This first energy level holds 1 orbital, and that holds 2 electrons.
Oh, I see.
This next energy level holds 4 different orbitals, and they're called energy levels because the electrons in this energy level have higher amounts of energy than the electrons in this energy level.
I understand.
Okay? Good. Know that valence electrons are those electrons in the outer shell of an atom, and that these are the electrons that are available to participate in interactions to form compounds with other atoms. When I react with another element, it's my valence electrons that interact. For ionic bonds, know that the thing that happens is that we have a complete transfer of electrons. If I have sodium with 1 valence electron, and I have chlorine with 7 valence electrons. Chlorine has space for 1 more electron in its outer shell, and sodium will give up its electron to chlorine, and that will make this +1, and that will make this -1, and they will attract together to form a bond. That's ionic bonds, and the thing that happens is complete transfer of electrons. For covalent bonds, know that the interaction is sharing of an electron pair. Okay? Sharing of an electron pair. Right? And the word itself means sharing. Right? So even if you don't remember, look at the word. Sharing valence electrons. Sharing valence electrons is what that word means. So covalent, sharing valence electrons, the word means that. So you should be able to get that, and then if you know that, then you know the other one is the one where there's transfer rather than sharing. Okay? And we're going to scratch that one. Okay, we talked about water, and all I'm going to ask from this section of our notes is what's in this paragraph. Okay? Now, I am going to ask you to know the words that go in the blanks. Okay? I am not going to give you a word bank for this. Okay? You need to know this. Okay, remember the water molecule has an unequal charge distribution because shared electron pairs are pulled more towards the oxygen atom than hydrogen atoms. And if I were to draw a picture of that, I don't need you to draw a picture of that, but if I were to draw a picture of that, I would draw the hydrogen atoms far away because the oxygen has them closer to it. Okay? Because the shared pairs of electrons are closer, right? Because the shared pair of electrons are closer, I have more of a negative charge around my oxygen atom and more of a positive charge around my hydrogen atom. And because of this, this is called polarity. It's like the poles of what? It's like the poles of a battery. Okay? It's like the poles of a battery. That's why we call it polarity, because there are positive and negative poles. So this property is called polarity. Because of this, forces of attraction develop between water molecules. The water molecules want to stick together. The negative part of the water molecule attracts the positive part of another molecule. They want to stick together. Okay? And these forces of attraction are called hydrogen bonds. These bonds give rise to two other important properties of water. One is adhesion and one is cohesion. Yeah.
Is this going to be the exact paragraph?
It's going to be the exact paragraph. Okay? One is cohesion, one is adhesion. Because of these properties of water, water has the ability to form mixtures with other substances. Right? Because I have this ability, water can reach out its tractor beams, its negative and its positive charges can reach out and grab onto other positive and negative charges and pull things into a mixture with it. Okay? They pull things into a mixture with it. And that's what allows all of our chemical reactions to occur. Hopefully you realize that if I have a board, okay, I have a 2x4 here, and I put some chemical here, and I put some chemical here, are these things ever going to interact or react with each other? No, they're not. But if I put them in water, and water can create a mixture with these things because of its positive and negative charges, then these things can react with each other. And that's what is so important about this ability to create mixtures, which is why we talk about mixtures. Okay, this allows all of the chemical reactions that need to take place in living organisms to occur. Our cells, just even one cell, has thousands and thousands and thousands of chemical reactions occurring in it all the time, because of this property of water. Without this property of water, cells could not exist. The other thing that water has is because they stick together so well, it's hard to make them move faster. I can't make the water particles move faster unless I add lots and lots of energy, or lots and lots of heat. Okay? Because they're stuck together so well, because of this polarity, or because of this adhesion that they have for one another, because of that, it's hard to make them move faster, and it requires lots of energy. And that is why I can add lots of energy to water without increasing its temperature. And we call that property specific heat. Okay, the property of water that allows it to increase the energy that it contains without increasing its temperature is specific heat. And that means that all the energy released during the chemical reactions in our cells won't fry the living organism. Not only that, all of the energy that hits the earth from the sun, does anybody remember how many atomic bombs we said that was in a day?
10,000?
A lot more than that. 100 million atomic bombs worth of energy hits the earth every day from the sun. 100 million atomic bombs hits the earth. Now, it doesn't hit it all in one spot, right? That would be devastating. But over the entire planet, that energy is absorbed by the oceans. And because of the fact that the water does not increase its temperature, because of this property of adhesion, I've told you that before, right? I saw a lot of surprised looks on faces. Haven't I told you that?
Mm-hmm.
I think I have. Okay? So, understand, water's an amazing thing. And you need to understand the properties that make it so that we can have these things occur in our bodies. Come on. Come on. Okay. Section 1.4, acids and bases. We talked about the idea that water molecules can split up. Okay? I can split H2O into H plus and OH minus. Okay? And if I do that once, if I do that in pure water, every one of these I get will give me one of these. And we said that the amount of this is not very great, and I don't really need you to know about the amounts of that, but I do need you to know that when these amounts are in pure water, they're equal to each other, right? For every one of these, I get one of these, and so these amounts are equal to each other, and that means I have something called a pH of 7. That's a neutral pH. If I have more hydrogens than I have OHs, then my solution takes on acid properties. Okay? And if I have a pH of less than 7, that means I have a hydrogen concentration greater than hydroxide, and it's got acid. So all I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you this little number line here, and it goes from 0 to 14, and I am going to give you H and OH, H and OH, H and OH, and I'm going to ask you to put in the comparator. Here you're going to say that hydrogen's greater, here you're going to say that it's equal to, and here you're going to say it's less than OH. Here you're going to say pH is less than 7, and that should be pretty obvious, right? Okay, so again, I'll give you pH and 7, pH and 7, pH and 7, and you'll put the correct comparator in here. pH is less than 7, H is greater than 7, that gives me an acid. pH equals 7 and H equals OH, that gives me neutral. And H is less than OH, pH is greater than 7, and that gives me a base. Okay, we're not going to talk about this fill in the blank question here. Okay? This is what you just did. Be able to complete the following chart. Get rid of that. Okay? Carbohydrates, energy, structural, use of nucleic acid, cell communication, energy, cell membrane steroids, heredity, protein code. And I need to make some changes here. Make sure that we write in here the things that we use: keratin, collagen, right? That's what we said for structural elements. Biologic catalysts. Is the term that I want instead of this. Biologic catalysts. This is an older version of that list. And then I said enzymes, right? Okay. Transport proteins in blood. Transport proteins in the cell membrane.
I did two of those.
Huh?
I did two. I thought it was just the transport and proteins in blood.
And cell membrane. So transport proteins, okay? But I make a distinction between the ones in the blood and the ones that are in the cell membrane. And if you just put transport proteins on the quiz today, that's fine. But I want you to be aware that the transport proteins in the blood are distinctly different than the transport proteins in the cell membrane. So, I think I said, what did I say for ferritin? Transferrin.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to separate these. Transferrin is the one that takes iron around in the blood. Glut proteins are the ones that are in the cell membrane. Okay, cell communication, glycoproteins. I said chemical messengers, hormones, and then I also said neurotransmitters, didn't I? Then immune proteins, antibodies, cell membrane receptor proteins. I said insulin receptor.
For the last one, didn't we specifically say cell membrane receptor?
Yep.
Okay.
Although the term receptor sort of implies that it's in the cell membrane. But if you say cell membrane, that's okay. If you didn't say, that's okay too. Okay? So that's what I want. And I give a lot of leeway on that.
You also said starches for energy, for carbohydrates, right?
I thought I just said glycogen. But if you put starch, I'll count that too. Okay, these are, I want you to be able to draw these from memory. This is what I want you to be able to draw for glucose. This is what I want your cartoon to be for fat. This is what I want your cartoon to be for phospholipid. This is what I want your cartoon to be for a nucleic acid. And then this is what I want your cartoon to be for an amino acid. So be able to draw those. And then this next page we didn't talk about, oh, hang on. We did talk about this. Know that saturated fats come from animal fats, have no double bonds, and carry an increased risk for cardiovascular disease. Know that unsaturated fats come from fish and vegetable oils, have one or more double bonds, and carry no increased risk for cardiovascular disease. These will be in the context of multiple choice questions. Also know that the difference between ribose and deoxyribose is that ribose has an OH group at the second carbon, whereas deoxyribose does not. That will also be in a multiple choice question. And then be able to match these structures with their correct name.
So we don't have to draw these.
No, you don't have to draw these. Let me, just didn't want to make it that small. By the way, we're running close on time here. That next page after this page, oops, this page just cross out completely. Okay, so the page after this one, cross out completely.
The chemical reactions page?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it. Okay, so on this one, okay, so the top one is glucose. Okay, or glycogen. So the top one is glycogen there, so watch what I'm doing here. This one is cellulose. This one is nucleic acids. This one is fat. This one is phospholipid. And this one is protein. Okay, so glucose molecules in a chain is glycogen or starch, right? Glucose molecules flipped and alternating is cellulose. Nucleotides hooked together are nucleic acids. Fats have glycerol and 3 fatty acids. Phospholipids have glycerol, 2 fatty acids, and a phosphorus-containing group. And then a string of amino acids is a protein, right? Then again, cross out this page.
And we talked about page number 8.
We did. Okay, so this one, I will mix these up and the descriptions up, and you'll have to match them. The chain, come on. Is the primary structure. The pleated sheets in the alpha helix is a secondary structure. If I attach secondary structures together, I get the tertiary structure. And if I attach tertiary structures together, I get the quaternary structure. Like I said, I'll mix these pictures up and I'll mix the descriptions up, and you'll just have to match them. Okay, any questions about this test? Okay, and I said this would be Friday. Okay? Yeah, so next time the question of the day will be the scapula, right? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we did that last time, right?
Oh, like her. Yes.
And I need to give Annalena one of those.
Did we have another target?
No, just this one. Oh, well, the study guide. And this one.
Look, they're refreshing. Oh my God. Yeah, because I don't have any other